Hey everyone, welcome back to Drama or Hum. We are doing our weekly review of Faraar, Qarz Jaan, and adding one more, Parwarish, to replace Meem Se Mohabbat.
Yeah,
As you can hear, I have a bit of a sore throat, so excuse me on that. Mariam, you are
I am now
enjoying,
in Srinagar. I'm in
you're in
Srinagar.
Srinagar. Yeah.
Yeah, and I actually want to spend a moment to just pass on condolences and peace to all the tourists who were attacked in Pahalgam today. So I was in Pahalgam 2 days ago, and there were a few tourists who were there in Srinagar, Pahalgam today,
Yeah.
who had the terrorist attack. Uh,
Oh gosh, I
so
didn't know that. Okay. Very sorry for
yeah,
that. Huh?
just want
Okay.
to take a moment. Yeah, I don't know who it was. I don't know who attacked whom, how many people died.
Yeah.
It came in the news. So,
Okay. I'm going to.
condolences. A lot
No,
of,
absolutely.
yeah, grateful
Uh,
for me not being there and just
yeah,
missing it.
yeah. No, no, I'll share my condolences while I had no idea before I just spoke to you now. So, I'm glad you
Hmm.
are safe.
Yeah.
And I hope that, the casualties are limited. The Pope passed away on Monday,
Yes. Pope
yesterday.
Francis. Yeah.
Um, so again, condolences to our viewers. I think he was somebody who not just for the Christian faith, but for all
Yes.
faiths, he was somebody who spoke to humanity, who spoke for peace. And it's been a difficult few days, I think, for everybody.
Yeah.
So wishing everybody peace and safety. May you all be safe with your families. Before we move on to our reviews, Karzajan ended this week. So we would like to know your thoughts on the ending of Karzajan. Share it in the comments below and watch our thoughts of Karzajan. And let us know if you agree or disagree, and please tell us why you agree or disagree as well. And having said that, let's move on to the reviews, starting with Farrar first. So starting with Farrar, Mariam, lots happened. Your
Yeah.
thoughts?
Yeah. That's happened. Very interesting turn in Fuzzy's capabilities, huh? I must say, like suddenly he's becoming the hero.
Yeah,
uh, उसको अभी बहुत जोश आ गया बहुत उसका दिमाग चलने लगा I thought the entire episode was done really well. Again, I feel like it's just taken a turn, this show, and every episode in the last ones we've seen
yeah,
have been very gripping, with no time to waste, with no like excess information. By the way, you were right. The guy who is that, whatever his name was, I can't remember
yeah.
anymore. Mama,
Huh,
whatever. He's
Mama. Huh.
the same guy because they met.
Yeah,
So you were right. I was mistaken, but I thought, yeah, lots happened. Obviously, the inspector uh, continues to remain, like the SHO continues to remain a key component right now
hmm.
because he's taking sides.
Yeah,
He's using information he got from Buggy to kind of
yeah,
play against the Chaudhary guy.
yeah,
Uh, Given he got some information from Buggy.
yeah,
Then, of course, Fassi got some new information from Faraz, which he
yeah,
did not know, which
yeah,
was also quite interesting.
yeah,
So I'm keen to see how this section moves forward, the Buggy, Fassi, and um, Batish section,
yeah.
because they now become interlinked.
Huh. And I think now, as you said, like the last piece of the puzzle, the Babrik has also now met Batish. I think that's going to be a short-lived,
Me too.
kind of interaction.
Hmm.
Um, because अब सिर्फ दो episodes रह गए. Like I was just saying to Mariam offline, there was only two more episodes to go. I would really, be interested in how Babrik plays into the rest of the story.
Hmm.
Because again, you've shown us that tracks. I would like that to be utilized. I think overall, Farrar is really now at that point where, no filler scenes, no waste, like not a second wasted.
Is wasted. No.
Yeah, not a second is wasted, and every scene we're getting a new piece of information. which is
Hmm.
kind of tying us, back to basics. So starting with that scene, and I'm glad now Hamza is getting more footage as well. There were some episodes in the middle where he would get like a 3 minute scene or something.
Yeah,
um
yeah, yeah,
and I
yeah,
know, and I thought that his screen presence wasn't being done justice too.
yeah.
But even for example, like the starting scene where he's um where he sees Babrik and
Hmm.
Jale,
Hmm.
the way he's like thinking about his life. He
Hmm.
thinks of Sadia more, it connects back to that.
Hmm.
So he does think back to that for a second. um and then he can Babrik and him talk. And then obviously, as you so do you have any thoughts on that scene first, like with Batish's arc in this whole episode? Because there was that first scene, then there is that scene with Buggy, and now we're seeing a very different side of Batish, which is a bit more vulnerable, where he's
Hmm.
almost relying on Buggy to say, what do you think? कि क्या करना चाहिए?
Hmm.
Should we
Hmm.
go
Hmm.
back? You're deciding for yourself. Decide for me as well. Like I think he's in that situation where he almost doesn't want to be in charge.
I think no, I think more than in charge, I think it's a moment for him where he's come to a point in his life where he didn't think he would be there.
Yeah,
It's more that where he's sitting and looking at those two and he's thinking about, oh, where was I when I thought that I would be, having my love of my life, and
yeah,
kind of that life has completely changed, and I'm now sitting here with all these people who want to leave the country.
yeah,
And I think the conversation with Bucky just highlights that he does not want to leave. He almost like he's
huh,
looking for her to tell him that she doesn't want to go, giving him that comfort. Okay, now I can
yeah,
see where I can go, right? So I think it's almost that versus
yeah,
dependency. It's like, when you want to do one thing, but you want someone
yeah,
else
yeah, yeah,
convince you, or at least pretend like it's not your idea. So I
yeah.
think I think it's that he's
He was
almost,
longing for that life. He's
yeah, he's reached that circle where he's like, okay, I don't know why I'm here,
huh,
and I don't see myself like these people
yeah.
who are running away.
Yeah,
So
no,
I
I,
think
I think I see what you mean. I agree with that. I mean, for me, like he was giving up authority because, he was in that place where he just didn't want to, you know, kind of take responsibility for the next step.
yeah,
But yeah, I see your point as well. Like, he does actually probably doesn't want to leave. Um,
yeah,
yeah. And then the whole Batish thing, we find out more that
hmm.
even that Mama, his loyalty is money, clearly.
Yeah, yeah,
So
of
he,
course.
he tells, he gets that other guy here, and Babrik is now basically in the line of fire. I would have liked to see, like, because they showed us so much of Babrik's brothers and his father initially, like much more
Hmm.
than the Chacha. So I think
Hmm.
from my point of view, I would have liked to see a little bit more of the father, or some of that dynamic come into play.
Hmm.
Um, but I don't think we're like this far into, the like so close to the end. I don't think we're going to see that anymore. So I think this is what we are going to see of Bubrick's track.
Which is, I mean, I'm finding this the fact that it's only two more episodes left. I feel
Yeah,
this. I'm finding it a bit. If that's true, if that's
yeah.
true,
No, no, the
then
teaser said second last episode.
oh, okay. So I wonder how they'll finish everything and how will they complete all the stories. Because let's say, and like Babrik's track, obviously we don't know what will happen, whether he'll get killed, not get killed. Because, but if he doesn't get killed, then what? How will they fit it all
Yeah.
in episodes? Then what
Unless they
about
take
whole?
him to Karachi, you know, because अभी Karachi का भी part है और अभी the whole like this episode didn't feature anything about QIP. In the teaser they say that Azam Bhai is coming back,
Coming
but
back? Yeah.
actually, but in the teaser they don't actually show anything. So I think next episode is going to be very crucial in how the
Hmm.
finale is going to be, because if they manage to get us to that point where there's only a few bits and pieces to be resolved in the final episode, then that would be
Yeah.
great. If they, again, I think given how they've taken the story thus far, I don't think we'll be disappointed in Faraar.
I mean, see, one ending to simplify everything would be that when Babrik is maybe those people are trying to kill Babrik, and then Batish
Yeah,
saves them, and takes them with him and Buggy
with him in buggy,
to reach
correct.
Karachi, maybe under police protection or something. They get a
Yes.
order away from the Chacha or whatever.
Huh.
So that is one conclusion, but it's quite unsexy. In- I mean,
Yeah.
it feels a bit like they went through all this to. I
Ha,
don't know.
ha.
It's just not
And that is a
interesting.
thought that occurred to me as well that, if that's
Hmm.
going to be the conclusion of Babrik's story, then what
Hmm.
is the need for Babrik's story the whole time, right? Because आपने शुरू में भी
Yeah.
आप थोड़े थोड़े scenes दिखा रहे थे उसके. Um,
Hmm.
one thing I'm disappointed about is obviously that they're not going to show like the whole like actual Faraar of like that nobody's leaving the country basically. They're all
But they
staying
all
put.
left. No, but it's not about leaving the country. They all
Ha ha.
left their
The
lives.
past, ha ha
I
ha ha.
think that is
It's
what Farad is about.
that is
It's
what the
leaving your
Faraar is.
past or
Ha.
leaving your current
Exactly.
situation and
Ha.
making
Breaking
better of
breaking
it.
basically ha. Breaking the pattern that you've been stuck with for so
Yeah,
long.
yeah,
And finding like, I'm sure like for example Buggy and Batish will end up in Karachi somehow. I would like to see
yeah.
how they deal with the whole Azam Bhai situation because obviously you've built him up to be such a big thing.
Hmm.
So how are you
I
going to
think Batish
basically
will become a key witness along with Mohsin Beg against Azam Shah,
huh
and they will put him in jail or something like that. I think he'll become a state
yeah
witness. Buggy will
I
become a
think
state witness. ऐसे सब बना के, they'll put the Chaudhary behind, Azam Shah behind,
yeah
and I don't know how Babrik is going to fit into this jigsaw
yeah
puzzle.
probably unlikely about them being able to get QIP to any kind of justice because
Hmm.
two episodes are left and it's not like the most powerful person on their side has been the DPO. Whereas Azam Bhai is shown to be somebody who's like a very big deal.
Yeah,
पूरा शहर संभाला हुआ है, all of that. So even
yeah.
like, if the SHO is very, very capable, even if the DPO is with them, we've
Hmm.
been debating whether he is or not. Even if the DPO is with them, even if like, all of them
Hmm.
become state witnesses, realistically, it's not actually possible for them to you know,
Hmm.
do anything really. Even Mohsin Beg, right? Like he was in prison for so long. So it'd be interesting to see what happens. I don't think it's going to be like a QIP completely gone type thing.
Hmm.
I think it's more going to be, stemming the evil for now, um, kind of an ending.
Finding
But let's
some
see.
peace,
Yeah,
probably. Yeah, it's
some
interesting.
piece
Like
for sure.
I'm quite curious. Like the only two episodes, I'm a bit now disappointed because
Yeah,
I had started really enjoying
ha,
Farah, and I want
yeah.
to see more and more of it. So only two episodes now. I don't know.
Yeah,
Okay.
but I think,
Um,
but again, performances wise, I think Hamza Ali Abbasi took the cake for me. The SHO as well.
very
I
good.
wasn't
Very
expecting him to have a longer role,
good.
but again, he's really putting his
Yeah.
mark out there. Meera, who is Buggy's mother. I mean, uska I think 1 minute का scene था, but oh my God, like that
Mm, mm,
character is so impactful.
yeah.
And again, Fussy being there.
The thing is, everyone in this show has acted well and
Yeah.
acted in character. I don't think there's anyone who's ever like just random actor या कुछ भी करके चले गया. ऐसे कोई भी
Ha
नहीं
ha
है.
ha.
Everyone,
Not at
even for
all.
dialogues, one scene, half a minute, they do their part and they do it well, which is quite a achievement for, of course, the director and the person who's put together the cast
Yeah.
and the production, right? To get it out of
Yeah.
the actor, not make us feel like,
Yeah.
"Arey, ye kya tha ye?"
Yeah. And I would love to, with a show like this, right? Even more than the actors, once the show finishes, I would love to hear from the directors
Hmm.
and the
How did
writer,
they?
but
Yeah,
mostly from the directors because I think it's the whole thing is actually their achievement. How
yeah,
and the editor as well. I know we've had our concerns with the editing in the past, but like for now, if you look at it, the pacing, the direction, the locations, the cinematography. Like,
Hmm.
I think for me, Farrar is like a visual representation of what can go right, in a
Yeah,
complicated narrative when you're
narratives.
telling
Yeah.
it. Huh?
Yeah, completely. I think it's done really well. Execution wise,
Huh?
cinematography, like every frame that they've captured.
Yeah.
In that frame, I love the jail where Shakura is sitting in jail and the camera moves. It's done really well.
Huh?
It's such a small thing. It's not even
Yeah.
important, but it's a very clean frame. Music, the music goes along with the
Yeah.
scenes. Like I think it's just done really well. Like if they've created a proper mystery thriller, like action TV
Yeah.
show, which I haven't seen in Pakistani TV shows at
I
least.
mean, there have been some shows, but nothing that has been done so well. And every time there's been something, it's been a side story. The thriller
Hmm.
part has been a side story to like a main story, which is, again about relationships and all of that.
Hmm.
I haven't seen something like this come out of Pakistan
Hmm.
before. It's a shame that it's still not like getting that many views
Yeah.
as some of the other dramas. So if you're watching, please, make sure you tell other people about it as well, because I think we almost owe it to a good drama that is being shown
Correct.
to
Yeah.
spread the word as well.
Yeah. Otherwise, you'll see those regular dramas, which we know we don't want to see, but they get the maximum views. The bad
Absolutely.
husband or the toxic relationships.
Yeah,
That thing. Yeah.
yeah. Talking about popular dramas, I think a good note to move on to the two final
Kardeja.
episodes of Qarz Jaan. Yeah.
Yes. Yes.
Um,
Before
yeah,
we get into the details of the episode or how we felt about the conclusion or whatever, what I felt watching these two, especially the Saturday episode, if not the Sunday one, I just felt it didn't feel like the Karzejan we've been watching so far. I just felt it felt different. The treatment, and I can't tell why. Maybe it was the pacing, maybe it was the dialogues. I don't know what it was about both Saturday and Sunday. It just felt different from what we've been watching so far. At least that was my
yeah, yeah,
feel. That I
yeah.
felt
No,
like this was very different.
I absolutely agree. And weirdly, Mariam, I even felt like the acting was different. Like I
Ha.
felt even the acting was not the same standard as the rest of the drama. Suddenly like people were doing things where at least I couldn't understand the motivation. The dialogues for me, the dialogues have been something that we've been saying कि वाह, कर्जे जान की क्या like dialogue
Hmm.
होता है, and it links back to XYZ and all of that.
Hmm.
I felt like I couldn't connect.
Yeah. It
Yeah,
almost
which
felt
is
like you're
weird.
watching a separate drama, like an entirely
Yeah,
different drama with the same
yeah,
people. And it almost felt like this was shot in like different years, or maybe these two episodes were shot before the entire TV show.
yeah, yeah.
No, and they
It did,
started.
huh? And I think that's one of the things that, um, I mean, if you think about, so we were talking about Memes Se Mohabbat last week, which ended.
Yeah,
Now,
yeah,
during the drama, we had a lot of concerns and questions and open-ended things that were
mm,
happening. But the
yeah,
last two episodes kind of gave us answers to everything, right? There was nothing that I had like left in my mind as, oh, what happened with that? Or, why hasn't that been addressed? In Karze Chan, I felt the opposite. That I was
mm,
watching a drama till, the third last episode, where
mm,
I was really looking forward to, like these wonderful questions that were arising in my mind
yeah,
about, people's equations, their
yeah,
motivations, all of that. And
yeah.
suddenly I feel like the last two have left me with more questions rather than answers.
Yeah, and almost felt like it was written. It just felt everything felt like either rushed, not rushed, almost like forced that we have to end it. So let's just now
Ha,
end it. It always felt like these last two episodes felt like they were writing it and directing it to end it. कि
yeah,
अभी बस end करना है तो कुछ भी करके
ha,
भी end Like, I'm
For
not saying
me,
it was
huh?
bad, terrible and stuff, but it didn't feel like the pacing so far, even though it was short periods, was slow. Like they did a lot in one day. Here it
Yeah,
felt like days passed suddenly,
yeah, yeah.
but nothing
I
happened
mean, it
and no
wasn't,
conversation happened.
huh? It wasn't the Qarz Jaan that we are used to. So,
Yeah, yeah,
if this had been an episode of any other drama, I would have said, okay, theek hai.
yeah.
But for me, I think it was also like at the very end, I was a bit like, oh, okay, so this was the whole point of the drama. I mean, because for me at the very end, like, and I'll come to that in a bit as well. Like I
Yeah.
was questioning a little bit about kya chat nahi humne, the
Hmm.
why did you show us all of that then? If this was the
Hmm.
एक
Hmm.
होता है
Hmm.
surprise का element, twist,
Huh.
which I
Hmm.
appreciate, but this wasn't really a twist. This was basically like something else coming all together and saying,
Huh.
and
Yeah,
yeah,
but, I mean, I expected something like this, but I didn't. I just felt like I don't know. I just felt different, and I didn't feel satisfied with everyone's performance. I wouldn't even say
huh,
one person,
yeah.
except
I mean,
I think the
huh,
only consistent person was Bakhtiar.
yeah,
Okay, I
yeah,
think everyone else was not behaving, but the acting was not
huh,
on point. I felt like if
yeah.
you take the
I mean, huh,
episode, right? The Saturday episode started with the conversation with Burhan and Bakhtiar,
yeah,
right? Which was still okay because Burhan was being Burhan, where he was trying
huh,
to be like. I like the fact that he is not sitting and talking to him. He's doing his work.
yeah,
He's not
yeah,
giving him the day, right? And only
huh,
time he looks up is when he mentions, okay, I'll get Nashwa
Nashwa,
to,
yeah,
not to divorce Nashwa. And then cut to comes Nashwa in his house. And I
yeah.
just felt like the whole conversation was like she didn't even let him talk. She just said, why are you doing this? You shouldn't do this. And it just felt like a one-sided conversation.
Yeah, I think
I don't
Mariam, I thought about that, right? Because I was like, so far, all the conversations between Nashwa and Ammar have been really impactful for me.
mean Burhan.
And sorry, yeah, Nashwa and Burhan.
No.
Now I feel like from the very beginning of episode on the second last episode on Saturday, the conversation between Burhan and Bakhtiar, right? No, and that is
Hmm.
what we were hoping from the teaser. Ke, that's not कि जो उन्होंने दिखाया, that may not be the full conversation, or
Yeah,
that
yeah,
there may be something more
yeah,
to it.
yeah.
But you have shown Burhan, right? As
Hmm.
like right now, if anybody had leverage at that point, it was
Hmm.
Burhan and Nashwa.
Hmm.
Bakhtiar didn't have leverage. He doesn't have
Hmm.
leverage outside, and he doesn't have leverage inside the home right now. So
Hmm.
for him to, or the show has not done a very good job of showing us how influential Bakhtiar is, or how powerful and dangerous he is. Because given what I saw of Bakhtiar, yes, I'm not
Hmm.
denying that he has contacts and all of that, right?
Hmm.
But from what I saw of him, I didn't see him as somebody, I didn't see the situation as somebody where Burhan had to fold and say, okay,
Hmm.
okay, I will take this case, because if he can find out a way to win this impossible case,
Hmm.
then sure as hell he can also find out a way to get Nashwa Khula,
Hmm.
right? From Ammar, who's now a certified criminal, all of that stuff.
Hmm.
So,
Hmm.
but that's where I felt the story didn't want to go there. As you were saying, that a lot of scenes and a lot of the storytelling was so that we get to the conclusion. Like they knew the conclusion, and they were
Yeah.
like, मतलब यहाँ तक तभी पहुंच सकते हैं जब ये होगा और ये होगा. Notwithstanding the fact कि ये आप तीन चीजें दिखा रहे हो, they do not follow through with what you have shown us in all the previous 30 odd episodes.
Hmm. Hmm.
So for
I
me,
mean, look,
once,
I think I can still accept this that Burhan did it for Nashwa because
okay,
he can only see her. He can
yeah,
only say, okay, what can I do for her? If this is something I can do for her, then he is almost thinking that I'll get him out and then baat ka baad mein dekha jayega. We can
हाँ,
force him to do bad, put him. Maybe what Burhan thought because he went down that route in his arguments Maybe two things here. Maybe he already always wanted Ammar to confess. So he kind of pushed
Okay.
Ammar. That possible. Or second, he wanted to go down the argument of that he's mentally unstable and he's an abuser. So instead of giving him a life sentence, which he does not deserve, give him rehabilitation and whatever, whatever. That way he
Huh.
will achieve the goal that Nashwa wanted to achieve, that is to improve his life. Plus, he'll get Nashwa out of the situation that she's in. So basically hitting two birds with one stone, right? Maybe let's give him benefit of the doubt that he wanted to go down that you can't prove the murder, but we know that he has a problem, so let's solve the problem. I don't know, just
Okay. Huh.
guessing here,
Huh.
okay? So that could be why he took the case. So I felt like still okay, ठीक है, उसने case
Okay.
ले लिया. I just felt the dialogues. Forget that scene. The dialogues between Nashwa and Burhan, then the dialogue between the mother and Nashwa. All of them were just like felt a bit like they had already spoken, and we were just seeing the bits of it. You
Yeah.
know, it almost felt like there's a conversation had happened, and we were just seeing the last two sentences of a conversation. Even the
Yeah.
Burhan Nashwa conversation felt like very abrupt. Okay,
Huh.
like I mean, I understand. She was like, what? She asked the same questions we were asking. Like, why are you
Yeah.
doing this? It's against my your principles and this
Yeah.
and that. Blah blah blah. But she didn't really. But I felt that okay, her still dialogues were okay, but his reaction, it reminded me of the Burhan sitting on that sofa in the office when he talks about the mother getting married. Remember the scene with Faryal?
Yeah. Yeah.
The way how he's sitting like this and he's saying, "Tumhari maa ki shaadi kara de."
Huh.
That's the stance he had in this scene where he was just sitting like that and
Yeah.
listening to her. He was not like leaning forward or kind of the engagement was like this, which felt
Yeah.
a bit weird, like just the setup of the scene.
And I think even in that scene, right, he could have basically said, okay, like, but again, Mariam, like, he didn't have an answer. The writers haven't given him a good enough answer. वो क्या बोले नशवा को? जब नशवा ये सारी चीजें पूछ रही है, तो
Hmm.
वो आगे से क्या बोल सकता है? या तो वो बोल दे
There's
कि
no good enough answer.
हाँ, बोल दे कि आई एम डूइंग दिस फॉर यू, लाइक जैसे गुस्से में था, ही कुड हैव सेड
Hmm.
आई एम डूइंग दिस फॉर यू, एंड शी कुड
Yeah.
हैव सेड कि मुझे नहीं चाहिए, एंड ही कुड हैव लाइक सेड कि नहीं, मुझे करना है फिर भी,
Yeah.
व्हाटएवर. But then he didn't have any answer then. Then to show us that second scene in the law firm when Nashwa is saying, again she's asking all the right questions,
Yeah. Yeah.
and and he again doesn't have the answers.
But
The
there his
only
argument
huh,
is correct. See, as a lawyer, his argument is right. Okay, we have to defend. He's guilty until proven, right? So, who are you to make that decision as a lawyer,
yeah,
not as a person of interest, but as a lawyer?
yeah,
You can still prove he's innocent, right? The way he was going, like there's no gun. Gun is his, but there's no one at the scene of the crime. I don't know why they didn't collect fingerprints. I don't know why they didn't collect forensics.
हाँ हाँ
वो सब
हाँ
वो तो पता नहीं सीसीटीवी है फोरेंसिक्स नहीं होता क्या हाथ पे गन पाउडर
हाँ,
गन में जो भी फिंगरप्रिंट्स ये वो तो होते हैं ना
exactly, हाँ हाँ.
रेसिड्यू होता
So
है. Before we go to the courtroom scenes, I just felt that whole first episode, right? There was
yeah,
literally 15 minutes, not 15 minutes of conversations. And then the
हाँ,
rest 15 minutes was just that song showing us that they're preparing for the case,
yeah,
which
आगे
was
पीछे
kind of a
जा रहे
waste.
हैं,
आ रहे
yeah,
जा रहे हैं पढ़ रहे किताब पढ़ रहे पलट रहे. I didn't need to see all that. Instead, I would have rather
हाँ,
seen someone having a conversation about something
yeah,
more crucial. Because one thing which I'll come to later, and I mean, like we can address it now, that they completely forgot about the Dadi, who was
yeah,
also a
yeah,
major
yeah.
troublemaker in this whole
She's the
thing. What about
one, like
her?
she's the one who has driven it all. She
What
was
about
the
her?
one who has driven it all. You know, like for her not to be in the courtroom, for her not to have like a, yeah, I think for them to say, okay, oh, she couldn't make it to the courtroom because she couldn't bear it, I felt was a very, it wasn't a good enough reason for me.
But there's nothing for her. There's no penance. There's no nothing happens to her. She just remains to be what a Just tell Dadi not to do the same thing to Minish. That's her
Yeah,
only thing. Like she
yeah,
has much worse crimes than just
yeah,
that.
yeah.
How about that? Like I just felt that
Why
was a
not?
bit
There was
like,
no there. It's also for me, I think the allocation of time. In for
yeah.
example, like those court scenes are जो तुम गाने की बात कर रही हो, ठीक है? उसमें there were some very nice moments which we have seen before in the OST की video, and which I
Hmm.
was really looking forward to watching the scenes for.
Hmm.
Okay, when she's walking past, will he try and stop her? Will he
Hmm.
do something more?
Hmm.
Will he
Hmm.
try and approach her? For me, like
Hmm.
making all of that like like a 4 minute
Like an
song
OST.
video, like an OST was not good enough. I mean,
Also,
yes,
this
you're
whole
showing time passing, huh?
yeah. Sorry, I'm cutting you. Sorry,
No, no,
because I
no, go
just
on.
realized. So this conversation with Burhan and Ammar. Okay, tell me everything about in detail, and then no call
None.
back to that.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
what was that conversation? What did he tell him? Did he what did he like? What was the story?
yeah,
What all did Ammar tell him? Did he tell him about
yeah.
Maheen? Did he tell him about what was the
If they had shown Amar in those scenes, and I'm so glad you brought this one up, in those scenes, break down a little bit
correct?
to show some kind of guilt, to say to Burhan, Burhan, I am beyond saving. I
Yeah.
know my father is giving like doing all of this, but I'm beyond saving. And Burhan had said him like a very pointed line to him कि
Hmm.
तुमने मुझे कहा था कि मैं जिंदगी से नाराज हूँ, इसलिए मैं जिंदगी से नाराज हूँ. Give us
Hmm.
some kind of something to hold on to, so that
Yeah.
we can because you're trying to show us the transformation or the breakdown of Ammar eventually. Give us
Hmm.
something so that we are ready for it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Show that all that time he's spending in jail, he's doing some kind of self-reflection. Show some flashbacks or something. I felt like all the things that Ammar
He
was
could have
saying.
simply asked him. He could have simply,
Yeah,
because he made this comment in the court, he could have simply asked him when Burhan came to meet Ammar, that how is my sister? That alone would
yeah,
have helped.
yeah,
Nothing more. Nothing more. Just कि
yeah.
Beenish कैसी है, you
Huh.
know?
And Beanish had 1 second. Beanish had said to Ammar's face in that thing where Beanish was saying कि Burhan bhai is better than you. At least उनको पता तो है कि क्या. At
Yeah,
least if he had said something, okay, I know Beanish respects you a lot, or she
yeah.
loves you a lot. I
Yeah.
wasn't being I wasn't the brother that she needed.
Hmm.
Could you do that? ताकि हमें
Or
थोड़ा सा तो मतलब पता
or
चलता.
he could have done to either of the two. Asked about his sister. Nothing even more. Not even more of
Yeah,
that. Just ask. Simply ask that. Or he could have just told him that why have you taken this case?
yeah,
Why are you helping me?
yeah,
What do you think is in me to help? That could have
yeah,
been also a simple thing. Nothing
yeah,
beyond that. You
yeah.
know?
Because how was he not surprised that the guy defending him is Burhan,
Yeah.
who he has said repeatedly loves Nashwa, all of that
Hmm.
stuff. I mean, letting him go free is giving him a blank check to do whatever he wants to do in the future. So how
Unless,
is
unless, unless Burhan convinced him to confess, right? Which we don't know. We didn't see that either.
yeah, but then it didn't. But then it took away from
We didn't
everything.
see it.
If that is the case,
We didn't see it. Huh?
huh? But then why wouldn't you show the most crucial scene?
Yeah, I don't know. That's what I'm saying. Nah. I just
Right?
didn't know what happened there. Because all that
Huh?
conversation that Burhan is standing there, where Bakhtar is talking to Ammar and Burhan
Yeah,
is there. What is he doing? What
yeah.
conversations are they having? At least show us something.
Nah. They put the music in the background unless I don't know if the story was meant to have a different kind of ending, and they just kind of changed the arc, and all the scenes that were shot before were like to do with the other ending. I don't know, which also
Yeah.
looks unusual because these scenes were released as part of the OST. So I mean, it doesn't feel like that they were shot at the end. Um,
Yeah.
but also the one thing that they said um that Nashwa said in the courtroom. कि बीनिश की शादी के वो 1.5 साल बाद she became famous. I was like, हम उस दिन टाइमलाइन की बात कर रहे थे.
हाँ, वही वही
We
वही।
were being generous with our timeline. She the one like went straight to like 1.5 साल, and I was like, okay, so
1.5
तो
साल
ये
is one and
डेढ़,
a half years ना।
या, so I was like
So
ये
तीन
एक साल, तो
ना
ये
तो
1.5
10।
years से ये बिस्मा और उसकी शादी की बात चल रही है. बिस्मा कह रही हूँ, ये नशा और अमार की शादी की बात
Ashwal,
चल रही है.
I
I
don't know.
was,
Time is just
yeah,
passing in some other land and some other land.
exactly,
But so now
exactly.
coming to the courtroom scene, okay? Um,
And the whole final episode. Let's deal with that in one.
do you have any thoughts on the not Beanish, Nashwa and mother conversation?
Um, I thought that the mother really oscillated. So in some scenes, she had a very strong opinion of, the fact. मतलब वो बेहोश हो गई 2 दफा. Panic attacks उसको हो गए when she thought कि Nashwa was being married to Ammar. Now
Huh.
when Nashwa is taking this stand,
Huh.
I would have liked the mother to say, okay, yes, Nashwa, you should, because somebody has to break the chain. You know, not like an open-ended, अपने दिल की सुनो और लोगों की ना परवाह. Like she was just like, I was like, hello, you know, like,
Yeah.
come on, you are the
Yeah.
biggest, you are the person who has suffered the most at the hands of these people. ठीक है, I understand, when she said कि Beenish and Nashwa are both like my daughters, and she had previously alluded कि, अमार भी मुझे बहुत
मेरे
पसंद है
बेटे।
and all that. हाँ, तो या तो you're happy that Nashwa is with him, or you're really unhappy.
Hmm.
Like she's almost like, okay, ठीक है यार, just like
चिट भी
follow your
मेरी पट
heart.
भी मेरा, she wants चिट भी
हाँ,
मेरी पट भी मेरा types.
yeah,
She,
yeah,
she doesn't want to feel bad for anyone, basically. That's her thing.
yeah. If she had said to Nashwa, कि, no, Nashwa, take this case, make sure he's behind bars his whole life, he pays for it, so that the cycle doesn't repeat. And she could have said, I love him very much, but it's important for him to have that punishment,
Learn. Learn.
right? Reinforce that concept. And
But
also
we
Nashwa,
haven't, but I don't think it's so out of character for that lady because we haven't seen her take any strong views. She wants what's best for everyone, ultimately.
yeah,
She
but
doesn't want किसी का भी भला बुरा,
so why
बुरा.
did she faint twice? Why did she faint like for half a day and have panic attacks
Because
twice
she
in the
doesn't
same
want
day?
बुरा for Nashwa also, no? So,
बिस्मा का कैरेक्टर मुझे एंड में तो समझ नहीं आया. एंड
uh,
आसिम as well, like उसका 3 piece suit in the court, like I was
suddenly
like,
he came out of nowhere and sat in the courtroom smiling
yeah,
with that real
even
smile.
बीजान, like उन दोनों की डेट्स मिली नहीं और दादी की डेट मिली नहीं.
I didn't know why Bijan was there either.
Yeah,
Um,
I mean it was,
anyway,
and everybody was sat on the same side, like the whole Bakhtiar and Bijan family was sat on one side,
there
and
were no
Asad's
different.
parents were sat. Yeah,
Uh,
या तो आपने अगर नशवा को आप सपोर्ट देने आए हो तो यू सिट ऑन द अदर साइड.
I
और
think
मुझे
it
इससे
just
बहुत
they
weird
didn't,
लगी.
I think they didn't want to be so blatantly show that we are against Ammar, like that it looks like that.
Okay, and Beanish had the child now,
Yeah, that
and
also I
now Beanish
found
had
weird.
the child because they
Huh.
said get him punishment, not
Then
that the
we'll give you
case
the
will
child.
start and we will give you the child.
Yeah,
Yeah, and they
yeah.
had the child now. Tell me what you think as well. But coming to the court scene, right?
Huh.
I was building it up to be like, there's amazing showdown in the courtroom, arguments and dialogues and to and fro and all of that. And I felt, Yumna's acting in that. And I've said it like, 15 times. We've both said it. That, what a brilliant performer, all of that, this, that.
Hmm.
It was so bad in
Yeah,
the
I
courtroom.
felt like something is odd. Like she almost doesn't believe what she's saying, or
Yeah.
that forceful,
Yeah, the
this
forceful
forceful
posturing.
posture, and like
Yeah.
this.
And then, like, talking like this the whole time, like, yeah.
Also, also they didn't. It was less about facts and more about like this whole emotional saga and like this
Yeah.
teaching to society and like behave and. To his credit, Burhan Barrister was the only one holding on to facts, and he
Yeah.
was like, facts, 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 right?
Yeah.
He
Yeah.
said over The judge is overruling him and listening to
Yeah,
some saga. I'm like, what? How is this connected? His
yeah,
upbringing. I know Ammar. That cannot be an argument in court.
yeah, yeah,
You have to go on the witness stand, be a witness yourself. First of all, how
yeah.
did the court agree that the wife will fight the case against her husband? That cannot happen. Like, I don't know. Is
I
that
think I
legally?
don't know the question to that. If there are any lawyers watching, please let us know if that's even a possibility that a wife can fight the case against the husband like that. I wasn't sure of that. I wasn't sure of that. But yeah, I mean, I was very surprised when she said as well, मैं अमार को बचपन से जानती हूँ. And I was like, okay, so,
That
you
cannot
know.
be an argument, right?
Yeah, it's not your word against him right now. Like it's like unless you go
Huh?
in the witness stand and you're able to say,
Facts.
um, yeah, yeah,
And
I
then
didn't,
also in the middle of this case, उस पे बहुत सारे दूसरे केस लगे हैं ये वो which barrister Burhan says objection to. Okay, this is
yeah,
unrelated. And then the judge overrules him. वो भी
yeah.
मुझे अजीब लगा. फिर also I
Criminal history is actually one of the determinants. This much I know that when you're judging somebody on the basis of intention and capability to commit a crime, then criminal history is a big thing. Not like mentioned in passing, and then I really got annoyed because she mentions the Maheen rape case. Okay,
hmm,
it's like everything is going in her favor, and then just because she has to mention it, right, for her
hmm,
own conscience or whatever,
hmm,
she mentioned Maheen's case,
hmm,
right? And
hmm,
that is it. That is all. You showed us the first 4 5 episodes in
hmm,
detail. You showed us Maheen ka pura cheese.
hmm, hmm, hmm,
Just like that. Like just
hmm.
mentioned in one sentence and gone.
Gone, yeah.
We don't
And
know who
also
killed
what
her.
happened to her murder?
Yeah,
He confesses to rape, but he doesn't confess to murder.
yeah. He
So who
confesses to
murdered?
rape. When Maheen is in the hospital, it's a gang rape. That's what they say.
Yeah,
That
yeah,
he was
yeah.
raped by
Yeah.
multiple men. And
Yeah.
and there is no like, okay, who were his friends, what was happening, all of that. Like she just says, and the judge Saiba says, okay, ye hum next wale mein dekh lenge.
Which
Okay,
is fine. What they had to say was actually, okay, this is also linked. If this is also one of the crimes, you need to open a new case against him, and the court needs to now treat this as separate charge on top
ठीक
of the
है.
murder. That needs to
हाँ,
then show a conclusion to that separately. But I just felt like the whole courtroom thing was like some big teaching lesson saga for like as a Yumna's whatever her name was Nashwa's
नशवा.
इतने सालों से मैं जो बोल रही हूँ I said so. It was her I said so for 10 minutes. And then
Yeah.
Ammar's yeah, I agree so for another 10 minutes.
And
I was like,
I was yeah, and I was very surprised कि एक तो Ammar just switches, ठीक है, एकदम से. Um, he comes and he confesses, and then I think it was almost 12 minutes that Ammar spoke for. Again, as
in
you were
the
saying, right, in the witness box, when he's
yeah.
talking about his upbringing, पहली दफा मैं शराब पी कर आया, ये हुआ, वो हुआ. Again, no facts, huh? No
Hmm.
facts.
So best was okay. There are two, three things which were a bit inconsistent. First, during the arguments, Nashwa is like that it's not because of his drug abuse. This man is only bad. She
Yeah,
mentions, okay, the
yeah,
आदमी ही खराब है. You can't blame it on mental instability or drug abuse. And at no point does Burhan counter and say, but you only were going to take him to a rehabilitation center
yeah.
telling me that this person is nice. It's just his. So that also I don't understand. Did she just lie in court that
And
she thinks
also,
that
yeah, yeah,
that
and
is
also if you think of, yeah, and also if you think about it, ठीक है, she says to, like, her stance on the Maheen case so far had been के, oh, but वो तो चीज कोर्ट में प्रूव नहीं हुई ना,
हाँ
right? वो
हाँ
उसके तो all of that. So he was
हाँ
redeemable till he
till he
raped
killed
and
Asad.
left somebody to die, He was
Yeah,
redeemable till then. He could have been fixed in the rehab. But
yeah,
now, since he has killed Asad, he is irredeemable and must be
correct,
behind bars.
correct.
Like, I don't
Which
understand.
also,
Like,
वो भी मुझे that I completely, I didn't think of it till, but I completely agree. So quickly, right? मैं तो तुम्हारे खुद पे आया, तो वो
हाँ,
मुजरिम बन गया. किसी और का
हाँ,
था तो इसी क्या होता है,
हाँ.
देखा जाए.
And then in the second last episode, when she's speaking to Burhan, and she says to him कि आपके मोटिव्स या गोल्स तो शायद बदल गए हैं, मेरे अभी तक नहीं बदले. मैं जालिम
हाँ,
का साथ नहीं दूंगी, चाहे वो मेरा शौहर ही क्यों ना हो.
पति शौहर ही
एंड
नहीं
आई
हो.
वाज
हाँ.
लाइक, ओके.
I'm sorry, but you married him despite.
Yeah, I was like, you were okay to give Zalim ka saath till your mother was getting married to Asim because of
हाँ,
that. Till he was your cousin, also you were okay to do it. So
yeah,
how does the morality change all of a sudden? Like what
right,
she was saying was actually not correct. कि मैं जालिम को
right,
साथ नहीं दूंगी, because she did, and at that time it was a compromise, right? And now
hmm.
she's turning it to Burhan and saying कि you are doing this क्या पैसों के लिए कर रहे हो या क्या?
Yeah,
And
that was
like,
quite like, yeah.
yeah.
कितने
So in
पैसे
a
दिए
way,
मैंने. Hmm.
exactly. So in a way, Nashwa did the exact same thing that Burhan is now doing. Nashwa's
Correct.
excuse was her mother. Okay, yes, I'm
Hmm.
doing it for my mother. And Burhan's excuse is I'm doing it for Nashwa.
Yeah. So
So
no
there's
one
no
is wrong.
difference. Yeah.
No.
But then, for her to, yeah, I mean, and then nobody says, like, Asim doesn't turn around to Burhan and say, they were discussing everything before on the terrace. He doesn't
हाँ.
say to, so unnatural. Asim hates Bakhtiar. He's smiling when
Correct.
Ammar is getting sentenced and all that.
Yeah.
And he doesn't say
Yeah.
to Burhan, Burhan, why are you doing this? You
Yeah.
know?
That's
Nobody,
something I
like,
wish they had shown conversations instead of the dumb OST and the scenes. Like it was a waste.
yeah,
I
at
just felt
least
like,
one more episode was needed
yeah,
between Ammar being in prison to where we were in the last episode. Like
yeah.
you needed another episode.
Correct. Yeah, and you needed some closures, like the Dadi nothing, right? Once Nashwa decided to take the case, I just felt her entire sympathy, empathy, all that thing that she felt for Ammar, like in that car also. मुझे पता है तुम अच्छे हो.
हाँ,
This
हाँ,
all that disappears. Like it literally just disappears. She doesn't
yeah,
even once question like why did he do this?
yeah,
And she questions on the terrace, no, where she says, because I sent him to rehab, is that why he went? So she knows that it's not like he just woke up one day and decided to kill
yeah,
someone. But
yeah,
in the court, even when he confesses, she's like, do you know what it is to confess? You'll be in jail all your life. And her whole attitude was not for 1 second did she soften in the jail, nor did she soften after when he
no, she
was.
softened now when he says, oh, by the way, Nashma, last thing I want to say to you, तुम बहुत अच्छी lawyer हो. And then she smiles as he's been taken away.
And that is the last
Yeah,
scene.
I was
I
like,
was like, in that whole full saga is going on, no, where everyone he's doing meet and greet with everyone. Okay, one by one he's doing the meet
that
and
was
greet.
another part that I didn't understand at all. Like his whole conversation with Beanish. I mean, for him to say in the courtroom that Beanish is the one I love the most. All
Yeah,
your scenes, emotional scenes, have been with the mother. Every time you have
yeah.
kissed the mother's hand, you have done all of this. You were AWOL at Beanish's shadi. You were smoking up with your friends in your room,
Hmm.
right? You
Hmm.
Burhan is the one who picked Beanish up from the salon.
Hmm.
Burhan is the one who was in her room in the night,
Hmm. You didn't
with
even go to
the,
the hospital when the kid was born.
yeah, Burhan was at the hospital. You weren't even there. And now suddenly the person who's closest to you in the world is Beanish. I mean,
No, no,
वही तो
he
बात
said,
है.
I never realized how much I loved you till now.
I mean, वही तो बात है. Why were they showing us? Now you tell me, okay? They showed us some beautiful scenes. Like that scene between Burhan and Beanish in the hospital. Where
Yeah.
she says, Burhan bhai, you know, you're like my brother. I trust you more than Ammar, all of that. For him to, put his hand on her head, all of that. Okay? Show us those scenes with Ammar then.
Hmm.
Show us शो अस दोज मोमेंट्स विद अमार, कोई दिखा दो, ताकि हमें भी पता हो कि अमार पूरी दुनिया के साथ बुरा है पर बीनिश के साथ अच्छा है,
Hmm.
या बीनिश के लिए उसके लिए सॉफ्ट स्पॉट है, ताकि when this whole thing happens we can understand it कि he knows he's really messed up this time, you know
Hmm. Hmm.
and
Hmm.
then when he says कि मुझे गुस्सा आ गया था, मैं ड्रग्स के इन्फ्लुएंस में था, मैं ये मैं वो, we would be like
Hmm.
हाँ, because we saw, it's like for example imagine like the scenes that we saw with him and his mother, we had seen with
Hmm.
him and Beanish,
Yeah. 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 But
and
also, I mean, the thing he mentions, right, where he says that I raped her because I was under drugs,
yeah.
and I killed him because I was angry. He doesn't use the excuse of drugs when he says I killed him. His excuse is not that I was high.
So
He
apparently, the
said,
writer in another interview had said that she wanted to like say that he committed the murder under influence as well, but I don't know why they thought like it'd be too heavy or something, and they didn't then add that
then
element.
if it's
But
not under drugs, then none of that explains what his behavior was. Because everyone is saying because he was under influence of drugs, he behaved a certain way and he was out of, then he later realized what he did. But if he was not
huh.
under the influence of drugs, then it doesn't explain his behavior during killing.
So apparently, that whole time when he was on that beach smoking up
Hmm,
before he
hmm,
goes to the father's office is
hmm.
when they have shown him to be but then he doesn't say it. He says मैं
Yeah,
गुस्से
yeah.
में था.
गुस्से
हाँ.
में था, he says. He doesn't say मैं नशे में था. And then I
हाँ.
think the whole build up here in the end
Yeah.
us to believe that Ammar is a good guy, but his father is the one who has caused him to do all these bad things is quite, I mean, this is like not making any sense. Because you can blame the father up until you're adolescent, up until you're 16. Yes, your father, yes, look, at underage, I agree with parts of it. You don't stop a child. You kind of put put things under the carpet, and then he gets used to it. But then to just completely be like, okay, now feel bad for him. He killed someone because of his father, and now let's all just feel bad for him because he's crying and he's being all whatever, whatever. Is also not right. Like,
Yeah.
it's also not right to sit there
Yeah.
and be like, "Oh, Binu, I'm sorry, I'm really sorry I killed your husband, and I'm sure your child, you will come." Whatever. I mean, I understood what they were trying to do,
But
but
they weren't eloquent about it.
you can't make us feel,
You,
want us to make a help. Like, it's like almost like, acha, he looks nice and he looks handsome and all, and so please now let's not think he's a bad guy. He's
yeah.
a nice
And
guy, and let's feel bad for him.
yeah. And even when he's in the witness box, right? He goes on about that incident about, alcohol and all of that. What he's not actually saying, which is like 4 lines, is basically to say that my entire life, my
Yeah,
father has made me feel less than, that I
yeah,
am not enough, right?
mm, mm,
And we have seen that as audiences,
yeah,
which is why I wanted to prove to him that I
that,
can also do something for him, right?
mm,
And now I realize that what I did was under the influence, and I could not have done it, and I should not have done it because I've destroyed my family and all of that.
yeah, correct.
Giving us, rambling on about the relationship with the, like, tell us in 4 lines, dude.
Yeah, yeah,
So, yeah, and
yeah.
then that whole scene with
The
Beanish
problem is,
saying,
like, we are commenting unfortunately on these things which feel like the I can't eloquently say it. I think the issue is that there are so many things which were not right, and I can't put my finger on what exactly went wrong where. But some of the
yeah,
things we're commenting on may not be completely wrong, right? We are saying it should not have been this way or it should not have been this way.
yeah,
I don't think it's all completely wrong. But because all of it put together just didn't feel right, I
yeah.
can't pick part exactly where it went wrong. Probably someone else watching that last scene and him walking and meeting everyone was like a redemption where he's going and
Yeah,
apologizing for his behavior and he's finally showing remorse. And people will be like, okay, at least now he's remorseful. So why shouldn't we feel bad for him and all that?
yeah,
But I just felt the way to go about it or the way to get there was not right. To completely just put the blame on one person and say, because of the father, this fellow ended up this way, and then just kind of be like, oh, now he's in prison, he's confessed, so now we should all feel bad for him, and
yeah,
it's not right.
yeah, yeah.
It's-
And they should have shown a little bit because it in the past, like Nashwa has alluded to, like, past sins of Bakhtiyar, of Ammar, all of that. Like, thoda sa unraveling hota na sara kuch, so we would have
huh,
understood the conclusion when we got
correct.
there. I mean,
Yeah.
okay, so that's all like the things that we didn't like. Um, the thing that I
One
did
more
like,
One more thing. I
okay,
felt like
huh,
when the Mahim thing would have come up, I felt like somewhere they would have come up with the murder, and then Bakhtiar something would have come up. Like then his also there should be some punishment for him. It can't just be regret. Regret is not enough punishment for him. That his son is in jail and he's trying hard to get his son out. That
yeah,
cannot be enough. It has to be
yeah,
something more inclusive. So I was hoping that that would get unraveled and then he would be dragged along as well. And also
yeah,
standing in court and very blatantly saying, my father-in-law is very influential and he can stop you. And like, how can you stand as a lawyer in court and say how people can just stop you from going to jail? You know that, right? In front of the
yeah,
judge. How is that
yeah,
normal? Then that's completely toheen, na?
ha,
Court
ha,
ki
ha,
toheen.
ha, ha, ha.
Anyway, yeah. I'm
Coming to things,
disappointed because I love the show and I was hoping
yeah.
for like a better last two episodes.
Yeah, I mean, in my head, I'm just going to ignore whenever I think of Jaan. I'm just going to kind of ignore the last, like, this whole courtroom Ammar type situation. And
Yeah.
remember, like, what we saw before. One of the things I did like, and
Mm.
again, it wasn't like they didn't like justify it completely and all of that, was the fact that at least Nashwa and Burhan ended up together. It wasn't the best executed. We weren't really given the reason properly why. It was like a switch, but I was happy that they didn't leave that as an open-ended thing because I
Yeah.
was like, okay, you've done all this khichdi in the last two episodes. Okay, at least like you've given us closure on one thing. Again, don't get me started on like, why that scene the way it was didn't make sense.
Yeah, because I just felt like the
Mhm.
whole last four episodes, right? The way she has behaved, the way she behaved with him after Ammar confessed, the way she spoke to him, and then to just switch off and move to sitting in the car and sitting on the bench. I was
And
like,
those horrid chashmas, man, those chashmas were
I don't
so
understand,
bad.
first of all, why suddenly, out of nowhere, does she have to wear those
Fendi
goggles?
chashmas. इतना बड़ा बड़ा Fendi like a billboard. Okay, I was like, oh
Like,
my
I
God,
thought
like,
maybe
yeah.
product placement or what? Is it product integration or
No,
something?
please,
God,
not for Fendi. I don't think Fendi is sponsoring us.
पता नहीं क्या, but he suddenly they're driving and she removes चश्मा out of nowhere. ठीक है, गाड़ी में से उतरते उसने चश्मे नहीं पहने, इस मैडम ने सबने चश्मे पहने हैं और full conversation is happening. I just felt like what just happened to this was so
हाँ,
awkward on that bench. It was
yeah,
almost like they hadn't spoken. Arranged marriages में कैसे मिलते हैं ना, वैसे था
हाँ.
कि पहली बार मिल रहे
Because
हैं
they
ऐसे
didn't also
awkward.
speak in the car.
हाँ, and I'm telling you, I felt like this was the first scene they shot in the show, and
हाँ.
then they shot the rest of the show. They're trying to prove that even now she's become a powerful lawyer because वो
Like
ऐसे
power
लॉ
move.
हमेशा चश्मे पहनता है ना बैरिस्टर बुरहान
But
ऐसे.
they were looking like men in black.
Maybe they want to show that now she's successful. They want to show that she's successful. So अभी चश्मे
Yeah.
पहनते.
There was that one scene that should have been there and was missing. Or, something in the last four episodes, some kind of a softness towards Burhan, some kind of
Hmm.
a redemption thing. So I thought when she overheard Burhan, when Bakhtiar and Burhan saying that,
Hmm. Hmm.
when Bakhtiar says to him that तुम्हें अब नशा भी भूल जाओ, I thought कि she would turn around and say, you were doing this for me,
Hmm.
like some kind of softness, and that would then justify the last scene,
Hmm.
you know. Um, but she just storms off in that scene. So it's literally like
Yeah.
that's their last interaction. Cut
And
to
then on the bench,
her, yeah,
Ajib,
cut to
I
her
felt that.
tailing him down, tailing him,
हाँ हाँ,
asking him,
ऐसे ऐसे जैसे
हाँ,
कोई टैक्सी बुला रहा है ना
हाँ,
कि भाई साहब
yeah.
रुको रुको
You could have
ऐसे.
given us a sweeter scene. She could have walked up to Burhan at the end and said, okay, today you're not going to force me to come with you.
I'm
Because वो
gonna come
हमेशा
with
वो
you.
करता है.
हम्म.
हाँ. वो हमेशा उसे कहते हैं कि don't create like, कि come Miss Nashwa, I will take you whatever. And he could
हाँ
have
हाँ.
said, like, I wasn't sure if if I have that right anymore
Anymore,
too,
yeah. Yeah,
you
yeah.
know. And she could have said something sweet, and they could have sat in the car, and then she could have gone to the bench,
Hmm.
and
Hmm.
all of that. But just the fact that she, did like बुलाई टैक्सी बुलाई बैठी उसमें चश्मे
वही.
पहने, no emotional connect, like no nothing. Go to the beach, go to the bench. Sorry, that scene, and then that okay, that last scene was softer. But they've given us so many nice, like these things where
Yeah,
Burhan always forces her to go with her,
yeah,
right? Why not today? Like, why not in the last episode?
yeah.
Like,
I
that could have been
just
her redemption towards him.
I think that's a nice setup where she would have said, "Will you not force me to go with you today?" and just sat in the
Yeah,
car without anything,
yeah,
and then
yeah.
yeah. I felt
Rather
even the
than,
last scene, ऐसे I mean कुछ
and
ऐसा तो.
I like that very last part, that visual of them against the sunset.
Hmm.
But, उसको सब छोड़ के जा रहे थे नशवा का कोर्ट रूम में. सब लोग चले गए अपने अपने घर.
हाँ. I thought नहीं, I thought this was a few months later or days later, नहीं, वो सेम डे पे था, क्योंकि पूरा
सेम डे था.
बैकग्राउंड में आया ना कि अम्मार को सजा मिल गई, फिर उसने बख्तियार ने बहुत कोशिश की, ये वो. I thought it was like a
नहीं,
few
I thought
months
that was
later.
नहीं. I thought like it was the same day. It
हाँ,
wasn't
नहीं,
actually like, many months later, or that Amitabh Bachchan type voiceover.
I know the voice of the person. He's the voice who was there in that Alif, no, Alif La Alif
Alif?
Ella,
Mandir se bhai.
Ella, not Alif
Ah, okay.
Ella. Ishkela. Have you seen?
No,
Okay. He's that professor with the chashma. Anyway, doesn't matter. I don't
I'll
think it's
look that up. Yeah, but
important.
I think okay. So I know we have like showed our disappointment a lot, but I think overall, if I step back, zoom out of just these two last episodes,
Hmm.
um, I think Jaan did succeed in a few things. One
Hmm.
was the visuals,
Hmm.
like how these small nuances that the characters showed acting
Right.
way, I
Yeah.
think up until like the last few episodes the director did get the best performances out of these actors,
Yeah.
because we
Yeah.
have seen them in other shows as well, and they haven't been this impactful. But for him to create these characters, there was a very interesting thing that the director had written. He said Burhan on paper and Burhan on screen were two very different people. He had
Hmm.
added a lot more to the Burhan on screen. So
Hmm.
I will say, kudos to the director
Hmm.
for giving us a visually, how we used to say that Kazakhstan has a world of its own.
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
To do that, to give us the good pacing,
Yeah.
um, some great performances and scenes.
Hmm.
Um, the cinematography was top notch.
Yeah.
you know the handheld camera, or the sepia tones of the frames, um the acting I've already said. Yeah, I
I think
and even
even
the
the
right,
writing,
yeah.
the dialogues, some of the dialogues, conversations, characters, not just the acting, just the characters we haven't seen before. A lot of modern. modern thinking, right? Like if you take Faryal and her mother, for example, you've shown a very conservative, not conservative, but very religious person with very modern thinking.
Yeah.
Similarly, you've shown Burhan, who's a very sensitive, very green flag character. If that's people use red flag, green flag
Huh.
nowadays.
Huh.
But you see Burhan, where you see people can be normal as well. You know, they don't have to be
Yeah.
toxic. They don't have to be overbearing. Romantic does not only mean overbearing, toxic personality. You
Yeah.
know, who gives
Yeah.
hot and cold. He was very warm all the time, and he's a very amiable, likable person which
Yeah.
you don't see very often. And often these characters on screen are third, like side characters. You know, they're not main characters. Like for
Yeah.
example, one observation was in Kabhi Main, Kabhi Tum, Kabhi Tum, Kabhi Main, that show. If you take the Jiju character, the sister's husband, he's totally green flag, right? He's always there for her. He's always there for their family, his own family. He keeps the parents in his house when they need him the most. But no one focuses on him in the show.
Yeah.
The focus is
Yeah.
not on him at all. But he's totally a stable man you want in your life. He's dependable.
Yeah.
He's always there. Burhan is
Yeah.
that, but now more successful, polished version of that
Yeah.
person. So it was very nice to see like a positive character being the main lead and not just those
Yeah.
romantic, toxic, passive aggressive type heroes,
Yeah.
which you criticize,
Absolutely.
like Ammar, for example,
Yeah.
right? Where
Yeah.
people are like, so cool and macho, but not really, right? Like
Yeah.
that's not who.
Absolutely.
And I'm really happy in whichever format they showed it, they put him in jail. Like they didn't get him off or they didn't show some weird way of him getting out of the situation. So fine,
Yeah.
you want to say bad for him and that's how you wanted to pull it, fine. But at least he's in jail. There is some uh, punishment for this. It's not like a
Yeah.
person forward to. And obviously, I've always commented the visuals, the way they've shot, the way they framed, also the music. They've used the music really well. Like the
Yeah.
music overbearing where like अरे घड़ी घड़ी track आ रहा है.
Huh.
But they've used
Huh.
the same music but in different pacing, soft pacing, acoustic pacing, parts of the music used differently somewhere else. So I
Yeah.
think the whole show was done really well, and I'm
Yeah.
glad we watched it.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think just one more thing to add to that, that they gave us all of these new actors as well, like whether that's Beenish's Fajar Sheikh, or even Ammar's Nameer Khan, right? Matlab, these are new actors who have done very well compared to, um, even Osama Khan, like Burhan, right? They're not like actors who have worked for years and years and years. They're still
Hmm.
relatively new, and for them to be
Hmm.
given that platform,
Hmm.
good, solid characters, हर एक का character was meaty enough. Like, you
Hmm.
mentioned Faryal, for example. उसका इतना छोटा सा role था, but it made an impact. Every
Yeah.
character that we were introduced to made an
Hmm.
impact on us. Whether
Yeah.
that's a Sidra, whether that's, these people. So again, like, very nicely done. That there was
Hmm.
an ensemble cast and it was treated as an ensemble cast. It wasn't treated as like, hero, heroine ये और बाकी सब कुछ बोल दे, बोले ना बोले, फर्क पड़े ना पड़े, like doesn't matter.
Hmm.
नहीं.
Yeah. Yeah. I
हाँ,
agree. Agree.
yeah,
So yeah, I mean, this is an end to Karze Jaan. We didn't like the end. We don't like the end in general when things come to an end. But we look forward to other shows of this quality, and we are hoping that we will watch some more now, which would have the same quality. So
yeah,
let's see.
absolutely. Talking of endings and then beginnings, a
Hmm.
new show started called Parwarish, that we also wanted to speak about. Mariam, do you have any thoughts on Parwarish overall? We've watched the first four episodes.
Yeah, so I had watched the teaser and I thought it was interesting because they've tried to talk about the new generation and the impact of like upbringing or thoughts and the differences. So when I saw the first four episodes, I'm quite intrigued because first of all, I don't know, I'm always a bit wary watching shows on this channel and by this production house, because
Okay.
they're always thematically regressive, like in some shape or form, right?
Okay.
Either in the dialogues or the female behavior towards the women, or just the way they portray things. So let's see what comes out of this. I'm not going to make any judgments here, but what I understood is what they're trying to address is actual upbringing of kids versus what people think should be the upbringing or the ideal upbringing, right? So if you take Jan's Dadi, who thinks that this is the way things should be because that's ideal, versus actually what are the basic values you need to teach your kids for your kids to be prepared. So it's very refreshing that they're showing this joint family in this way, because it feels like a normal everyday joint family
Yeah.
problem,
Yeah.
you know,
True.
especially the interaction between the dadi and the bahu in the beginning, and then when the new bahu comes in, and that whole triangle where Chinese whispers keep going around. कि उसने मुझे ऐसे बोला, and the husband talks to dadi, and then dadi talks to dad.
या
That
पर
is,
यही होता है.
yeah, and
हाँ.
you watch it and you're like, अरे, हमारे घर में भी ऐसे ही देखा है हमने, you
हाँ.
know,
हाँ.
very normal.
It's a
Uh,
very relatable story in that sense, whether
yeah.
you have, when you grow up with cousins, and you have
Hmm.
the dada dadi's equation, the brothers
Yeah.
equation,
Correct.
how there is some kind of jhijak between the saas and the bahus still, right? Like nobody
Yeah.
will say directly, the husband has to go and talk to them. Yeah, जैसे वो
Yeah.
like when the two kids have a fight, how everybody's
Hmm.
brought into one room, and all of that stuff.
Yeah.
Um, so I felt like so far they've, in that household, they've done a very nice job of showing. I don't remember if you watched this show on TVF, called, was it Summer of '98? Um, it has that
TVF, the YouTube TVF.
TVF. Yeah, yeah, yeah. It has that lady who was in Jussi Jussi Koi Nahi.
Okay,
Um,
I've not seen Summer of '98. No, I've not seen.
it's, I
Mona
think
Singh.
it's called Summer of '90. Ha, Mona Singh. Um, I think it's called that. But in that show, they show like a very real life how things were growing up kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and this reminded me of that, in the
Mm.
simplicity of it, in
Mm.
the dialogues, in the
Yeah.
interactions, how realistic this seemed. So I really enjoyed that part. The other family that we are being shown,
Mm.
that is a more typical depiction, where
Mm.
where the actress, where the main lead, for example, is who's studying for medical, but the father is saying कि uski शादी कर दो, निकाह कर दो, all of that stuff.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So that was for me more typical.
Mm.
Um, but I still enjoyed this first family. I'm enjoying very much.
Yeah,
Whereas
because
with the second,
there's more to show. There's more to show.
there's
It's a
more
bigger
layers.
family.
Huh?
There's more dynamics, right? You're seeing dynamics between the how every generation is, like,
Yeah.
it's very typical where the दादा दादी is always stuck, right? They're like, अच्छा किसका side लूं? इस भाई का side, इस भाई का side लूं? And they're saying कि हाँ नहीं तुम compromise कर लो, वो दूसरे को बोल रहे तुम compromise कर लो. So I
Huh.
thought that you're right. Like, it reminded me actually, funny enough, of Dekh Bhai Dekh. Dekh Bhai Dekh was a much lighter comedy version.
Okay.
This is a very old TV show which was on Sony when Sony first started.
Okay.
Doordarshan, I
Dekh
think.
by dekh.
Dekh
Okay.
by Dekh. It's from the 90s.
Huh.
There's a big family where cousins and bahus and all live, and it's a very
Yeah.
comedy show. It's not a serious show. So it's just like things in that family.
Huh.
So it kind of reminded me of that, where all the cousins are like have their own level of interaction, how they
Yeah.
fight. And I
Yeah.
really like the actors.
Yeah.
Both the boys. The boys are really good. That Sameer and the
Ah.
Sameer
Okay.
and
Okay.
what's his name? I
And
don't know.
Wali. Wali. UK
Ali.
Wali.
Both of them have done a very good job. Like the Samir,
Yeah.
I think, is a very good actor because
Even
he's
the parents, they're really good. Like without, like they look like 17-year-olds, 18-year-olds who are like
yeah.
um very well played. I felt like even the parents wali jo generation thi na middle wali,
Mm, mm,
very nicely done. Like the Norman Ajaz, who's like Wali's father, who's come from the US,
yeah. Mm,
him and his wife, like
yeah.
their dynamic is so perfectly, like you
Correct.
see these couples around you.
Yeah.
उनका बोलने का स्टाइल, उनका कपड़े पहनने का style, all of that, and they
Hmm.
have
Hmm.
chemistry, which is you don't really like comment on chemistry between like the parents, but these
Yeah.
two have it, and similarly the other two as well,
Yes. Yes.
जिनका बिल्कुल ही एक different, एक बिल्कुल पाकिस्तानी way of living, all of that.
Hmm. Hmm. Hmm.
Um, but unka is, you can feel the chemistry there as well, and it's interesting because the less modern of the two couples
Hmm.
actually have better communication.
Yeah, but she says na that I think that's what they're trying to highlight, that just because you are in Pakistan doesn't mean you are conservative thought, because both those
Yeah.
parents, the parents who have lived in Pakistan, even the dada dadi, a very modern thought process. They have a much more polite way of talking. The way of bringing up the kids is more with love and with care and kindness rather than with rules and restrictions, right? They are
हाँ.
even that choti bahu, I forget her name. She makes a comment. She's like, "हम ऐसे लड़का लड़की देख के school नहीं. We just select a
हाँ.
school for the kids. We didn't think of whether they're a girl or a boy. You
Yeah.
know, where that Noman are just stuck in that नहीं, you know, बाहर तो ऐसा होता है
हाँ.
और we have to be in Pakistan to protect our culture and protect the
हाँ.
kids. You know, it's a very actual reality that parents who are outside India or Pakistan are much more conservative thought or much more protective of their kids and how they grow up versus parents who are in the country. Because when you're in the country, you don't think you have so much to lose because the influence is always there around you. So you do what's best for your child. When you're outside, you're trying to hold on to your culture, you're trying to externally force culture down people's throat, which becomes
Yeah.
a bit more difficult to handle, right? So I
Yeah.
liked how very softly they've shown that between the two
हाँ.
families. Shown it in extremes either. They've shown it in
Yeah.
everyday conversations.
Absolutely. And you can tell, right? Like you can tell something has happened in the US as well, that
Hmm.
triggered their coming here, them coming
Yeah,
here.
yeah,
And something with the daughter, something
yeah.
that had to do with the daughter and all of that. So I'm looking forward to how that part unfolds.
Hmm.
What did you think of the interactions between, I think it's Anya, right? Anya, who's
Anya and
the,
Wali.
Anya and Wali, like the two leads. So we already
Yeah.
seen like a few interactions. What did you think of those?
Um, I I didn't I wished there was a better foundation for the animosity. I felt the animosity was a bit forced. Like for no reason, she was angry at him, and then she continues to be angry at him. Obviously, I think the better scene was the later one in the college where he's like, "Pay me money for my coffee," and
Huh,
that felt a bit more. There was foundation, but I just felt that
yeah,
entering into a house, getting so angry with him, and then feeding on that anger. But
yeah,
maybe that's how they're trying to show her personality, that she gets into these fights with men all the time
yeah,
thinking
yeah,
that men are her enemies generally, and I think it comes from her father because her father behaves a certain way.
yeah. And the
I
sister
think,
also says, "Na, कि you have never like really interacted with the boy before, so
hmm,
that's why you become so aggressive."
correct.
That's like that's
Yeah,
really the, yeah,
yeah,
yeah. I do, and I think it's that I really like that song that Wali guy sings. I thought it was a very nice song. I would listen to
mm,
it.
mm,
And but I thought like overall it was very nicely done. I mean, अभी तक सिर्फ 4 episodes हुए हैं, so
Yeah.
We're just learning about the characters and who they are and the dynamics between the house and
Mm-hmm.
everything. Um, I for me, it's like a slice of life type show.
Yeah.
So I'm really looking forward to watching it every week and then talking about what we've seen,
Mm.
um, because it seems like it could be a potentially a really enjoyable watch.
Yeah, like I did feel at any point I needed to fast forward. Where I'm like, अच्छा
Yeah.
मुझे ये नहीं देखना, और
हाँ.
ये लोग कौन है या ये क्या
हाँ.
हो रहा है. So I hope they keep that going. So far, I've not felt the
हाँ, go
need
on,
to
go on.
fast forward or skip anything. I didn't feel like they've put anything extra. I just hope it maintains this rhythm and lightness and it doesn't move into
Yeah.
something dark, the father pushing her towards marriage, getting some weird guy to marry her, and then she stops to study,
Yeah.
and some weird tone
हाँ.
like that, which is why I'm saying I'm wary of these Big Bang TV shows because they do go
हाँ.
in these weird spaces.
हाँ.
Um, Not sure what they'll do here. What was confusing to me was the father's character, the girl's father's character,
Uh-huh.
because they're showing him in this comical, you know they're showing him in this comical manner where he's trying to cut costs and making these weird comments, and not like he's not like a authoritative, serious, conservative guy. They're showing him
Yeah.
conservative in a funny way,
He doesn't look
almost chuckling.
menacing. Yeah.
Yeah. So if he does something bad, I don't know how it will go. Like, I'm not sure because that household, it feels like they are kind of scared of the father, but not really because he's just some weird character, essentially.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I agree. I agree. There's definitely more fleshing out to be done on that. And I
Yeah,
sure hope that they don't take it down that, route of like toxicity and all that. I mean, some
yeah,
shows sometimes should also be light and still convey the message. I mean,
correct.
we see
Yeah,
so many heavy
exactly.
shows already कि कुछ light भी हो तो चलेगा.
I mean,
So I
you
think
can
on
get
हाँ,
serious, but you don't have to get like weird.
exactly, like
Yeah.
इतना toxic कि वो वैसे हो जाए, unbearable हो जाए. I think on that note, um, you
Yes,
know, um, we said goodbye to Qarz with a heavy heart.
yes,
But we're looking forward to reviewing, whatever is next. So we'll share. Thank you for suggesting Parwarish. Actually, it was suggested by some of you, which is why we started
yes.
watching it. So let us know what you would like us to watch instead of Qarz Jaan as well.
Mhm.
And then eventually Faraar as well, which is coming to an end. I think on that note, thank you for taking out the time. Let us know your thoughts on Qarz Jaan as well. Because we would love to, I feel like we've been on this journey together with all of you. So we
Yes.
would love to hear your thoughts.
Thank you so
And on
much.
that
And
note,
we'll see you next week.
absolutely take care.